name's Riley. We're going to be talking about genetic counseling today. So first up, we're going to start off with the definition. And the National Society of Genetic Counselors defines genetic counselors as professionals who have special education in genetics and counseling to provide personalized help for patients as they need it for making decisions about their genetic health. So to start out, I want to make sure that people understand that this is not genomic counseling. Genomic counseling would be your services like 23andMe that provide like a wide range of genetic information, including increased risk for complex diseases that have a small genetic component like diabetes or cancer, non-disease traits that are linked to genetics like baldness, and then genealogy data. That's not what we're talking about today. Although really interesting stuff, and some genetic counselors do cover that stuff, that's not technically what genetic counselors do. Genetic counselors focus on Mendelian diseases, which are the ones that have those dominant recessive traits we all learn about in biology. You inherit them from your parents. So things like sickle cell anemia, hemophilia, things like that. They provide, they're experts that provide person-to-person communication with non-experts, patients who don't really know what this genetic information means, and they help interpret that for them. They're limited to telling you currently clinically relevant information, peer-reviewed information, sound science, not just like, oh, well, there was one study that said, you know, chocolate can lead to cystic fibrosis. That's not how that works. They have to use real, solid data. And then, because their main purpose is to help the patient understand and adapt to these diseases that they either have or have a high risk of having, or their child does. So this is a major part of somebody's life and has huge psychological and familial implications. So it's an important job. That brings us to their scope of practice. So that can kind of be broken down into three main areas. The biggest one is interpretation of family and medical histories to help the patient understand their risk for the condition. So this would be like parents who are thinking about having a kid, but they know one of the parents is a carrier for something. What are the chances that my child comes with that and is born with that? And what does that mean for their life? The second part is education. So they need to help the families know what the medical histories mean and their impact. They need to help them with what genetic tests would be good for them, what the testing would say and how that applies to them. Management and prevention, so this would just be like a late onset disease, how they might be able to delay the onset of that disease, and then other resources that they can use to throughout their life for the life of their child. So that includes like support groups and things like that. And then third is actual supportive counseling. So you think about like grief counselors or something like that. They do a bit of that too. They're working with people who have probably just gotten bad news, and so they need to help them get through that and go on with their medical process. So because genetic diseases can set in at all sorts of different ages, their work environment can be drastically different. A lot of them are at high risk or specialty prenatal clinics. So they do a lot of counseling for, again, parents who maybe one of them is a carrier or maybe both of them is. Maybe somebody who got pregnant on accident and is like, oh no, now I don't know, like, is my kid going to get this? They can help them with testing to see. They also work in pediatric care centers, so like Dornbecker's, Children's Hospital, so that would be mostly with patients who were born with a disease, whether the parents knew it was going to happen or not, and helping them get through that. And then adult genetic centers also, because there are late onset genetic diseases like Huntington's disease, which is a memory disorder, things like that. So to get there, there's some educational requirements. First, you need a bachelor's degree. It can be in a variety of disciplines, but preferably a Bachelor of Science. You could see how something like biology or genetics would help you with the biology and genetics parts of the job, but other things like psychology and social work could also help you because you are doing supportive counseling. But regardless of what the bachelor's is in, you need a master's of science in genetic counseling. And once you do that, you're eligible to sit for the American Board of Genetic Counseling certification exam. Once you're certified, you're actually good to go. You can work, unless you work in one of these states. These states all require licensing tests. And then something else that you should keep in mind is a lot of insurance companies require the provider to have a license to pay for it. So if you do want to have patients be able to pay with their insurance, it might be a good idea to get a license. I'm not sure how that works in some place like Oregon that doesn't have a licensing process, but it's something to consider if this was something that you wanted to do. And then of course there's continuing education, because the field of genetics is always changing, we're always learning new things, and it wouldn't be very helpful if you weren't up on the latest tests and what they do. So personal requirements would be dedication, and that's dedication to your continuing education and to your patients. These people need your support and you to care about what you're doing, so you need to be a very dedicated person to those things. You also have to have a lot of skill in educating, because you have to translate fairly complex medical language to people who are from various backgrounds. Maybe they are scientists, but you have to remember that a lot of times these people are grieving or going through a process that you have to help them with. And then being compassionate is a huge one, because of the supportive counseling aspect and the working with vulnerable people. It's not the only part of the job, but it is a huge part of the job. You are considered a counselor. So this is where I got most of my information from, but also I wanted to show you guys a couple of things on here because it's really interesting. The Find a Genetic Counselor is supported by the National Society of Genetic Counselors. And that, you can go on there and you can put in Portland, Oregon, and say student contact welcome, and it will give you all of the names and contact information for local genetic counselors and what they do. And all of these people are interested in hearing from students. So if this is something that you guys thought you might want to do, you could contact these people. And you can see they all do kind of different things. Most of them work at OHSU. Most of them see patients, but some don't. Like I was looking earlier, this woman down here, she works in research in in testing. So she's developing the tests that people would use for these things. But she's also a board certified genetic counselor. And then there's other people that see patients. They do things from like prenatal to cancer. And so they're all over Portland, and they all have indicated that they'd be happy to hear from you. So if you wanted to do that, you could. And then the other thing is the Bureau of Labor Statistics has some information on genetic counselors. And so you could go to this for updated information, although it's from 2016, so it's not that updated. But on the median pay, what the job growth looks like, and things like that. So those are excellent resources if you guys are interested. Any questions? Cool.
Great job.
Yeah.